we've been eating good for 15 years, you know, in the lightweight division. How many dozens or hundreds of prospects that these guys just totally demolish because we were so blessed to have this golden age of fighters, you know? All right, welcome to another episode of Two Fight Fans, where we talk about all things in combat sports. I'm one fight fan, Colin.
And I'm the other Stuart.
And we are on part 2 of the best of times and the worst of times. We are going from men's lightweight all the way to heavyweight. The original divisions in the UFC, actually.
Lightweight, I believe, was only added at some point, but yes.
It was added after, and then it was dropped, and then it was re-added. So, okay. Not really, so kind of, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, welterweight and above is anyway, whatever the fuck. You listen to the first episode, or if you haven't, go back and listen, because we only got 5 viewers on that episode. Go back and listen to our other best of times, worst of times. Colin, are we going to start at lightweight, moving our way up, or are we going to work down in this episode, heavyweight down to lightweight?
Well, do you want to end on a high note, or do you want to end just, God, this fucking sucks?
I would prefer to end on a high note, so I think we should start at heavyweight.
All right, we'll go opposite this time. Let's go heavyweight. All right.
Yes.
The most storied of these divisions in the UFC. Now, and we're talking about MMA as a whole, right? Not just the UFC.
Yes. And this is the division with the most, history.
Mm-hmm.
It is, I mean, you said it facetiously, but it is the most storied of divisions. So, in that mind, Colin, how many eras were there of the heavyweight division in MMA?
All right. So, for me, it's really, and it's still wild for me to think, because I know if you go way back, and I think about MMA back in the day, like early UFC days and everything, the original MMA that I used to watch was from Pride. And a lot of those Pride fighters ended up making their way over to the UFC. And then I would watch them in the UFC. But, you know, I saw like highlights and clips of them from Pride, but I didn't really know who they were. So when they came over as actually lighter people, like Shogun. He came over as a light heavyweight, not as a heavyweight, but he fought in heavyweight, right?
No, you are.
He didn't fight in heavyweight? He only fought light heavyweight? Okay, well, there's a number of people from Pride who, when they made their way over, they went to lower weight classes, right?
I also think you're wrong there, but maybe.
Yeah.
So I think what you're thinking is that middleweight in Pride was under 205.
Oh.
Light heavyweight and above. So like Silva, Dan.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, we were at middleweight, but heavyweight was always 205 and above, which was the same as what it was in the UFC.
Okay. So, but even then, like some of the quote unquote heavyweights ended up fighting at 205, even though they were later on would go to 2 or whatever, vice versa. I mean, but anyway, a lot of these also carry over from what we just talked about. So, like the earlier generations for me are all like the Pride names. You know, like people coming over for Pride or fighting in Pride. Mm-hmm. We alluded to this a little bit when we first prefaced this whole idea. And then once Pride folded and didn't really have much, you know, in the when did Pride fold? What, the late 2000s?
2008, 2009?
Something like that, yeah. And then it became this weird, like the UFC is like the main draw of MMA, but the main heavyweight that everyone in the know cares about is not in the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
So I really have this like Pride era first, and then this like weak UFC with Fedor elsewhere. Mm-hmm. So like the heavyweight division is just kind of meh for a while. Mm-hmm. Then we have the fucking freak huge people in heavyweight with like Brock Lesnar, Cain Velasquez, Junior Dos Santos, like all these just huge guys. And then we got like the heavyweights that had skill with Stipe and Daniel Cormier. And then we just had big Francis Ngannou. Again, the return of the giant Goliath just knocking everyone out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess you could say we have the modern era after. But I would still consider Francis Ngannou is still in the current modern age. So what is that, like 4 or 5 different generations or eras of heavyweight fighters?
And that is kind of the pre-Pride era. Right?
Yep.
We've got Pride.
Yep.
We've got post-Pride, which we will just call the Brock Lesnar era.
What would you call? Oh yeah, no, Fedor is the Pride era. Yeah, I'll say that. Yeah.
Then we've got the I'd say the
Big Uglies.
Here's my thing: Cain Velasquez, Junior Dos Santos, Fabricio Verdum, the title holders after that sort of Brock Lesnar era, all weighed below 240 pounds.
But they were fighting people who were bigger, like Bigfoot and
I'd say like the top
Overeem.
5 of that division were little baby boys. So I would say maybe we'll call it the skill era.
You'll say that's the skill era.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've got the Stipe era, because I think that is kind of its own, and then we've got the modern era.
Okay. You wouldn't lump in the Stipe in the skill era?
No. We've got 6 eras then. Because it's heavyweight, because it's so easy. Let's quickly go through each era.
All right.
Can we name 5 good fighters in each era? And that will help distinguish the good from the bad. So let's work backwards.
Okay. Modern era.
That's right now. So
right now.
Can we name 5 good heavyweights in this modern era?
I guess you have to say John Jones.
Okay, we've got John Jones. Sure, that's no issue.
Sure.
I mean, he is decorated, the most decorated fighter in UFC history. Sure.
Okay.
John Jones.
Tom Aspinall.
Great. I love that. Tommy Asp. We love that.
Yep. Curtis Blades, I guess.
No, fuck you.
No, you don't consider him on the top.
No.
Okay.
No.
Francis Ngannou then.
Great, Francis Ngannou.
That's pretty much that I have. The ones I have.
All right. So we've got 3 heavyweights worthwhile in this division. Yeah?
All right. Yeah.
Great. Let's go back to the Stipe era.
Okay.
Can you name 3 from the Stipe era?
So aside from Stipe.
Yeah, Stipe.
Stipe, Daniel Cormier, who else? Who else did he fight then?
That was in his era.
Let's see.
Let me Santos, who I think was an older generation.
Yeah, but that was but they were all like older, right?
Fabricio Verdum. Well, I mean, the thing is, I think Stipe was like 3 or 4 years younger than all of them. Right?
But they had been fighting Junior Dos Santos won the title.
Yeah, way before.
5 years before Stipe first did. So
great. Yeah. So really, you've got Stipe, and you got Francis, who kind of is in this in between.
Yeah.
And you've got
Daniel Cormier. Yeah.
So great. We've got there's only 3 heavyweights worth watching.
Okay.
So we've got the modern has only 3, and Stipe has only 3. Now let's go to the what I've called the skill division. This is the Junior Dos Santos,
Cain Velasquez.
Who else is fighting during that time that has held a belt?
Frank Mir.
But he's he's pretty old.
You put him. Okay, you put him before then.
Yeah, I put him in the Brock era. So we've got Cain, we've got JDS.
Oh, so you're not saying Brock Lesnar in this either?
No. This is
Okay.
Verdum, right?
Verdum. Yeah. You've got Overeem.
Great. Mark Hunt, also kind of surging.
Yeah. Okay. You had. Can you count? Like, no, not really. Crow Cop was earlier as well. Shane Carwin held an interim title.
Shane Carwin, I would kind of put in the Brock Lesnar era.
Oh
But
yeah. I forgot
yes.
you. Yeah, that's
But
separated. Okay, then that. Yeah.
Antonio Silva, maybe Bigfoot Silva.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, because he fought for the title, right? So
Yeah,
we've got
yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah,
6 good heavyweights.
6.
That is
Alright.
double the amount of the Stipe era and double the
Hey,
amount of the modern era.
way to go.
Now we go to the Brock era. We've got Brock, which we'd love to see.
Yep.
We've got Shane Carwin.
Shane
We'd love
Carwin.
to see. We've got Frank
Frank
Mir.
Mir.
Great. Anyone else?
Nogueira.
Ooh, well, now does Nogueira count in this category, or is he a Pride era heavyweight that just
I mean,
longer?
yeah, that's yeah, I guess so. I mean, he kind of spanned multiple, but he was like, yeah, he was definitely more dangerous in Pride. So
Great. So we've got 3. So the same amount and half is the amount of the skill era. Now we
all right.
go to the Pride era. Who we got in the Pride era, Colin?
Okay. Well, you've got Fedor.
Great. We got Fedor. Who else we got?
You got the 2 Nogueira brothers.
Well, not Little Nog is in light heavyweight, not heavyweight. So we'll say Big Nog.
Okay. So he was okay.
Big
So
Nog.
was Krokop also light heavyweight also, or slash middleweight, or was he heavyweight? Krokop was heavyweight too. Okay.
The best heavyweight fight of all time in MMA: Fedor versus Krokop.
Yeah, that's
fucking amazing fight.
Yeah.
Fedor, Nog,
Fedor.
Krokop. Who else we got? We've got Andrei Arlovsky in there.
Okay, you're killing it. Frank Mir, then he's in this one too.
Mir's kind of in this one. We've also
Yeah.
got Tim Sylvia also in this one.
Yeah.
Jeff Monson also in this one.
Would you say Randy Couture, even though he's really a light heavyweight and he just moved up to heavyweight because it was a weak division?
I would say he is probably actually in the pre-Pride era.
Okay.
So
You would say Randy? Okay. Yeah. But he came back to win the heavyweight championship.
Yeah, at 44. That's not
his
era. He just
but he still did it.
Shit era.
Yeah. I mean, so what? He still did it.
We can give a half point to Randy here.
All right.
But even still, we're at 7.5 good heavyweights.
Okay.
Compared to 3.
Yep.
And then the pre-Pride era. We're talking about. I mean, this is mostly Randy Couture won the belt twice in this era, so we're talking Randy. We're talking Kevin Randleman.
Oh yeah. Was Boss Rutten during this time, or was he in Pride?
Boss Rutten? Yeah. We're talking Mark Coleman.
Okay.
We're talking. I don't really want to count Murray Smith. I would even say Josh Barnett.
Oh yeah, Josh Barnett. Yeah.
So that's 5. So what I've established is that the modern era has 3 good heavyweights. The era before with Stipe had 3 good heavyweights. We then had the skilled era of Kane, JDS, Verdum, Overeem, Hunt, Silva with 6 good heavyweights.
Mm-hmm.
We have the Brock era, which is about 3. It's Brock, it's Shane Carwin, it's Frank Mir. Not that interesting. We have Pride with 7.5 if you include Randy Couture, because we have Fedor, Nog, Krokop, Andrei Arlovsky, Frank Mir, Tim Sylvia. And then we have the pre-Pride, which has Randy, Kevin Randleman, Mark Coleman, Boss Rutten, and Josh Barnett. So, Colin, what is the best era of heavyweight?
It's either got to be the Pride era or the quote-unquote skilled era.
And it's got to be the Pride era because Fedor, Krokop, Nog, Andrei Arlovsky, like it's good eating right there. Like that's the best heavyweight fights have ever been. And don't let anyone tell you heavyweight's good now. It sucks now.
Well, let me ask you. You didn't like the Kane, Junior Santos, Kane, like back-to-back trilogy?
I thought that had a lot of potential to be the best era. Kane, when he came through, was I don't know how you felt, but like it was kind of like an astonishing thing to see.
Yeah.
Kane and JDS.
I love Junior Santos, man.
Yeah, and Verdum and Overeem and Mark Hunt and Antonio Silva. It was like, oh shit, we're entering a new golden age. And then all those guys, I mean, Kane plagued by injuries, JDS took a historic beating fighting Kane. Verdum was kind of older. Overeem was kind of older. Verdum and Overeem fought in Pride. Like, we could kind of
Yeah.
take them back to the Pride era. It
Yeah.
looked like there was going to be this amazing renaissance in the heavyweight division, and then it just turned into Stipe and no one the fuck else in that division for a while, right? Like, it just
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then, like, the only heir to Stipe was an old Daniel Cormier, which I love Daniel Cormier, but, like, he was old when he fought him. And then it was Francis and no one else. There has not been any semblance of replacement of skill in heavyweight. So, no, I think you're right. It has to be the Pride era. The Pride era is the best that heavyweight's ever been and probably ever will be. It was,
Yeah. That's fair.
if you haven't watched Fedor versus Nogueira, Fedor versus Crow Cop, if you haven't watched Crow Cop versus Overeem, if you haven't watched Crow Cop versus anyone, like, you gotta go watch it. It's the best heavyweight's been. Now the question is, Colin, if that's our best, if the Pride era, which we're talking like basically 2001 to 2006, that 5-year span, if that's the best era, which one is the worst? Is it the modern era, or scoring the same amount? Is it the Stipe era?
I would honestly say now is worse. Like,
yeah,
I was at least intrigued by Stipe and Daniel Cormier, even though Daniel Cormier was at the end of his like career there. Like, there was still intrigue behind it. Everything right now at heavyweight, I look at it, and I'm just like, ugh. Like, I only want to see like Tom Aspinall.
That's one person. That's not even a fight.
Yeah. I will watch him fight, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think when you have 2/3 of your division of interesting fighters being John Jones and Francis Ngannou, moments away from retirement and on the back end of their career, and they're still two of the best fighters, it shows that your division's not really kind of like, there's not a lot of lifeblood pumping through that division. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So MMA fans, you're currently in the worst era of heavyweight MMA. And like, I can't, it sounds like nostalgic, like dreaming, but like, dude, heavyweight back in the early 2000s. I mean, even up until basically 2010, Fedor, Krokop, Fedor, Nogueira, Tim Sylvia, Andrei Arlovsky versus Tim Sylvia, Fabricio Verdum versus Mark Hunt, Cain Velasquez versus Bigfoot Silva, JDS versus Stipe, JDS versus Kane, Brock Lesnar versus Kane, Brock Lesnar versus Overeem. This was a sexy time to be a heavyweight fan, right? And now we're in the real, and not even lean times. We're all starving to death out here for heavyweight MMA. Like, it's dire in these streets, my brother. It hurts. Yeah. So, we are in the worst of times for heavyweight.
Yeah. I think that's fair to say.
Then let's move on to light heavyweight and see if our fortunes change.
All right. Stubby, why don't you start on this one? Why don't you tell me what your errors are?
Great. So we have the Frank Shamrock era. The UFC will try to delete him endlessly, but he held the title for 2-3 years and then left the organization without a loss. Frank Shamrock, we all know Ken Shamrock. Frank Shamrock was the fucking man and the first GOAT all-around fighter. Frank Shamrock was fantastic. Then we had the Tito Ortiz era. Right around this Tito Ortiz era, we were also having what was known as middleweight at Pride, where Wanderlei Silva, the axe murderer, was absolutely bashing fools.
Yep.
Like, this was, I'm going to call this just straight up the violence era. We had Frank Chop and then the violence era. Tito Ortiz was a hammer. He's definitely a goof now running around mad conspiracy theories, but...
and as a fucking, like, city councilman or something?
Well, he definitely got booted from being a city councilman for being an absolute donk. But Tito Ortiz was the absolute man at that time. This is 2000 to 2004 about, right?
Mhm.
And then we had this wonderful moment, which it still counts. I count it as the Tito Ortiz era, where it passed between Tito to Randy to Vitor Belfort, back to Randy, back to Chuck Liddell. Right?
Yep.
There was like this wonderful competition. Um, and then I would call it basically the Chuck Liddell era
Yeah.
after that. And that lasts all the way up to this was the acquisition of Pride. Randy or Quentin Rampage Jackson came over, knocked out Chuck Liddell, lost it to Forrest Griffin. Forrest Griffin lost it to Rashad Evans, lost it to Machida, lost it to Mauricio Hua. Like, but that they're all of the same generation as Chuck Liddell. So we'll
Yeah.
say that it's. I mean, really, that era right there is the prime
That's
of light
that,
heavyweight.
but that's also like the Pride era as well, like
Yeah,
where all the fighters
definitely the
from
Pride era.
Pride came over. You know.
Yeah, yeah. So we had the Shamrock era, we had the Tito era, and then we had the Pride era, which like there's a little bit of overlap between the Tito Ortiz era and the Pride era, but like Randy, Vitor, Chuck Liddell, Quentin Rampage Jackson, Wanderlei Silva, Shogun Hua, like all of them. This was when like basically between 2000 and 2010 ish. I mean, light heavyweight, right now, lightweight is the sexy division. Light heavyweight used to be the marquee,
Yeah.
amazing division.
I think we talked
Or,
about this. Like
yeah,
every pay per view was like a light heavyweight fight. It was like Tito Ortiz or Chuck Liddell. Like one of
yeah.
them were always headlining.
The first MMA fight I ever watched was UFC 40, which was Tito Ortiz versus Ken Shamrock, right? Like it was a light heavyweight fight. Like light heavyweight was the division of kings for
Mhm.
the longest time. So yeah, we have the Shamrock era, then we have we can call it the Tito, the Pride, or just the King division. I mean, for 10 years it was the King division. Between 2000 to 2010, it was the division of kings.
Mhm.
And then, much like many kings across Asia and Eastern Europe, the Mongols came in, and the Mongol horde had the name of John Jones, and he wiped out this division
Yeah.
for 10 years, basically 2010 to 2019. I mean, 2020, basically, when he vacated it. He ruled this division with an iron fist, destroying every former champion, everyone in his peer group, Alexander Gustafsson, Daniel Cormier, Glover Teixeira, and then he beat the newcomers, Anthony Smith, Dominic Reyes, Thiago Santos. He beat 3 generations. I don't know if there's any other MMA fighter who's beaten so thoroughly every
No.
generation other than John Jones.
Yeah. No.
And then we have basically the modern division post Jones.
Yeah.
So it's crazy because for being such a storied group, it's been only 4 eras. Whereas a heavyweight, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there's
Mhm.
only been 4. And that's because primarily Jones
Well, dominated for like
dominated.
3 of them, like you
Yeah.
said.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've used this analogy before, but like a enemy of the Romans had said they create a wasteland and call it peace, and that's what Jones did. He just so demolished this division that there was almost no competition left over. When he left, a former opponent at age 42 that he had roundly demolished in Glover Teixeira was able to win the title. But it was only because he left this division. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yep.
Like all that people could do was wait for him to age out of this division. So, Colin, of those, what was the best time to watch light heavyweight?
God.
Because I only can think of 2.
Yeah.
Only 2 eras.
I would say the I would say, and I might be partial to this, during that Pride run of like the end of Chuck Liddell, and start of John Jones. So it kind of like has this weird overlap of the end of the Chuck Liddell era, the whole of the Pride Fighters coming over era, and the start of John Jones's era. Because John Jones, the first part of his was him taking out all these other fighters too. He would
Yeah.
he beat Shogun, he beat Lyoto Machida, he beat Rashad Evans, he beat Quentin Jackson, he beat Vitor Belfort. So all the former champions he just like took out like systematically.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I don't like John Jones now, I remember watching that and just thinking like, God damn, like what are we watching right now?
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think we should just firmly say it is the John Jones. It is the John Jones era. As much as us officially on the 25 Fans podcast despise John Jones as a human, like legitimately watching him, I mean, hold on, let me pull up his record. Like watching him dispatch of Hall of Fame like fighters in rapid succession was the most absurd shit you could think of.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like it's I know MMA fans will not understand it now, but at age 24, right, he came in and he beat Hall of Fame, considered one of the best light heavyweights ever, Mauricio Hua. Then Hall of Fame, Quentin Rampage Jackson, Hall of Fame, Lyoto Machida, Rashad Evans, Vitor Belfort, Chael Sonnen, Alexander Gustafsson, Glover Teixeira, a champion, Daniel Cormier, like he went through them. He went through Shogun, Quentin Rampage Jackson, Lyoto Machida, and Rashad Evans in a single calendar year. You know, like
Yeah.
it was. It did. I mean, it did feel like seeing Genghis Khan come through and just like wipe out a fourth of the population. Like it was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if that is the best era, what is the worst? There's only one right answer, Colin, and you know. I know you love Alex Pereira, but let's be
Yeah, I was gonna say it is pretty much that one. Like there's just the skill level, the entertainment. Like I mean, like if we think about it, Alex Pereira is like insanely like just has dynamite for hands and it's like so exciting when he fights. But then I think about like those previous eras of like Chuck Liddell and Tito, like that's how like everyone was back then, and they just like swung for the fences every single time, and were just like out for blood, and fucking loved it. Like,
yeah. Well, let's think about it. The era that John Jones vanquished, Shogun Hua, just absolutely blood and guts. We have Lyoto Machida, a sniper of a puncher. Rashad Evans, who flatlined Chuck Liddell. We have Chuck Liddell in that. We have Rampage Jackson in that. John Jones's own era, Alexander Gustafsson, a fantastic pocket boxer who was 6'6". Glover Teixeira, who trained Alex Pereira. We have Daniel Cormier, a fantastic wrestler. We have Phil Davis, a fantastic wrestler. We have Ryan Bader, a knockout puncher and wrestler. Alex Pereira wouldn't exist in that era. You know, like he just wouldn't survive in that era overall.
Yeah.
Neither would Jan Blachowicz because he fought in that era. Jan Blachowicz is old. Glover Teixeira wouldn't really massively exist as a title contender in that era because he existed in that era and got flatlined by like two of the three major contenders. You know, like it just took Daniel Cormier, John Jones, Alexander Gustafsson, Rumble Johnson, rest in peace, aging out, passing away, for these guys to like actually get a foothold in this division.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. The current era is the worst. It's the worst that it's been for light heavyweight.
God, we have two back-to-back divisions that it's at its worst now. That's not good.
Yep. Oh, baby. And you think that it's going to stop there? Let's move to number 3, baby. Our favorite middleweight, Colin.
Oh man.
How do you even classify middleweight?
All right. I I really have the pre-Anderson Silva, the Anderson Silva era,
Okay.
the like Chris Weidman and weird mix up of people who like it kind of like you said stuck around long enough and became champions like and then we have like the new like the Robert and Israel Adesanya era and now the mess that we're currently in.
Okay. Kinda.
I
Well,
mean,
hold on.
you could say the Robert and Izzy like from 2018 onward is still like because they're still active, they're still in this era, but they're on the tail end of it. So
Yeah.
I would say you could lump that into one era.
Okay. So let's start from the beginning. We have kind of the early UFC,
Yeah,
which like middleweight wasn't really introduced till what 2002, 2003. Um. So like, I mean, whereas heavyweight and light heavyweight were introduced in 1997, 1998.
yeah, when they like first started.
Yeah. We have the Damone, Marilla Bustamante. Kind of like, who cares? We have like kind of the proto and Evan Tanner, the proto uh middleweight, which like doesn't even really count because it was barely a division. When the division initially became popular was Rich Franklin, right? We have the Rich Franklin era.
Yeah.
Him beating Evan Tanner, him beating Nate Quarry, David Loazo, right? Then, like you said, the Anderson Silva era.
Yep.
We have this weird middle ground of a newer generation, which is Michael Bisping, Luke Rockhold, Chris Weidman.
Yeah.
Beating out the Anderson Silva generation. So we've got Rich Franklin, Anderson Silva, weird middle ground one. And then we have, do we just want to call it the Oceanic
Sure.
era? Like,
yeah.
because it was kind of like it's like when we described featherweight as the Volk Max era, right? It's like a dual era. It is the Rob Izzy era.
Yeah.
And then now we have a weird modern era, which we'll call the white trash era. Is that about right? Because it is DDP and Sean Strickland. It is the white trash era. Yeah. So, okay. So we've got 4. We've got the Rich Franklin. We've got the Anderson Silva. We've got this weird middle, like, post Silva, the Oceanic, and white trash. Actually, it's 5. Which one is the best, Colin?
I would say again, I have to go back and forth between the Anderson Silva or the Oceania.
Yeah.
Anderson Silva just it was a pleasure to see what he could do when he decided to do so. Like he was just so head and shoulders above all of his competition that he made the top of the divisions look like amateurs, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And he would just toy with his opponents. I mean, we talked about him at length in one of our whole episodes there. But the storylines in the Robert eras were much more compelling. You know, the rivalry between Izzy and Robert, the rivalry between Izzy and Alex. You know, you really only had one major rivalry in Anderson Silva's era, and that was him and Chael Sonnen. So that was, yeah. So I guess in what we're talking about, of like, you know, entertainment value, the skill, really Anderson Silva was like the main skill draw there. And those two are the ones that come to mind most.
Yeah. I do want to call your attention in the Anderson Silva era.
Yep.
Because I have as much fondness as you do. The skill level.
Yeah. I mean, the disparity
Travis
is significant.
Luter, Patrick Matei, Talis Latas, Damien Maya, Forrest Griffin, Chael Sonnen, Vitor Belfort. These are not Yo Romero's. These are not, these are not I mean, as much as Paulo Costa has fallen off at his height, what Paulo Costa was, these are not the height of Kevin Gastelum. These are not the height of middleweight's always been a very wonky division, but I would argue the Izzy Rob era is the best, mostly
Mhm.
because of how they dispatched of extremely difficult older generations, which is Izzy beat Anderson, Robert beat Jacare and Yoel Romero.
Mhm.
Um, right, we had this like dispatching of that generation. They both beat people of their generation and are continuing to be people of newer generations, although they are beginning to kind of drop off in that aspect
Yeah.
overall. So I would say Oceania over Anderson Silva, but I do understand that it is close. But like, I don't know. Middleweight, when Anderson was fighting, hadn't quite figured out the jab yet. And they still haven't figured it out yet. But like, uh, not a
I also
single person he fought had a jab.
yeah, but I also remember like thinking that, and it was kind of like what we talked about before with what was it? I think with DJ, like
Mm-hmm.
Anderson Silva cleaned out the division so thoroughly that like they were just throwing people that like weren't close to being ready. They didn't have time to develop. So it's almost
Yeah,
like Anderson Silva like staunched the development and growth of an entire division because he was so much better than everyone. Like
that's true. That's
that's
true.
kind of rough, you know.
Yeah. Okay. So we can at least say, let's say maybe Anderson, maybe the Rob Whitaker Izzy division. So that leaves only 3 chances for what was the worst. The modern one, the Rich Franklin one, or the kind of that weird Chris Weidman, Luke Rockhold, Michael Bisping trifecta
Yeah,
era. Let's
yeah.
eliminate one of those right off the bat. I'm gonna say let's eliminate the Chris Weidman, Luke Rockhold, Michael Bisping,
Okay.
because
Okay.
all of them beat people both in Anderson Silva's generation and in the Robert Whitaker, Israel Adesanya generation.
Okay.
Right? They
Okay.
beat
That's
fighters, and I think that's so. It's the Rich Franklin generation or the Dricus Duplessis, Sean Strickland generation.
okay. So here's the thing: the
Yeah,
Rich Franklin generation has the benefit of just being like I can't. It's hard for me to hate on cavemen for not having technology. You know, like these are fighters
yeah.
who like don't really know what this like in the dark ages of MMA. You know, like there isn't much of anything yet in this division.
Okay.
You know,
Well, no,
and
because
well,
Rich Franklin was champion at the same time Fedor was champion.
sure, yeah,
You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah,
Like, so, and he was champion at the same time that he was. Rich Franklin lost his championship the same year George St. Pierre won his championship. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah.
So, like, he was a caveman, but it just turned out that there was a motherfucker a couple blocks away who had invented fire. You know, like, and like that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just saying, like, God, DDP and Sean Strickland, though, like, God, this is so bad. Like, I don't get it. I
Yeah, I
don't.
know, but let's think about the rest of their generation. Let's think about
Okay,
it
okay, okay, okay,
holistically.
okay. All right.
DDP,
Yep,
Sean Strickland. We also have
yep.
Kai Pahalio,
Okay, okay.
Imavov. We also have uh, Hamzat Chimaev. Like, there's
Oh
5
yeah, yeah.
people, 6 people right there.
I forgot about Hamzat.
Did Rich Franklin have? I mean, he was fighting
No,
Luke
he didn't. He
Quarry and
didn't.
David Loazo. Like, what are we on about? You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah. Okay. All right.
So I think Rich Franklin's generation is the worst that it was for middleweight. But the second worst,
Is the
worse than the
current?
generation, worse than the Chris Weidman, that kind of soup of Weidman, Rockhold, Bisbing, and worse than the Oceania generation is the current. So even if it's not the absolute pits, there are still 3 generations that are better than the current one. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yep,
Like,
yep,
it's still in the lower half overall.
yeah.
That's what I would say.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So
That's
It's
fair.
not it's not like heavyweight and light heavyweight where we're like, wow, this is definitely the worst it's ever been, but it's as close to. I mean, here's the thing: Rich Franklin was like impressive, and we all went, "Wow, look at him!" And he's a math teacher or whatever. But like, he beat up Nate Quarry, who came off the Ultimate Fighter and won 2 fights in the UFC, and that was a title challenge. He
Mhm.
fought David Laws, I think, off 2 fights in the UFC, and like David Laws was like 10-0. Like the Rich Franklin era, fucking sucked the horn. Like let's not sugarcoat it. It
Yeah,
sucked.
yeah,
And the
yeah.
current generation is pretty dire as well. You've all heard us talk about DDP and how fooled we are by how shitty a fighter he can be and yet still win.
Mhm.
Uh, so, yeah. All right. So, only the second worst time to watch middleweight currently. But now we go to like the actual last two divisions.
Yes, yes.
And these are good.
These are
You know
good.
what?
These are good.
These are fucking good divisions.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Colin, please describe for the audience how many generations there are at welterweight.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to preface this first, and I want to start with a question. Would you characterize the overarching theme of middleweight is it has been dominated by striking dominant uh fighters? Like the main thing is like they're strikers. Strikers.
Yeah, I would say the meta of middleweight is
That's
to
king.
be a extremely fast twitch athletic striker.
Yeah.
Like that is the yeah, that's the main meta for middleweight.
Okay. Because the reason I say that is the main overarching theme I feel like in welterweight has been to be a very all around well adapted fighter. Like you can do everything because you have to, but like has been a strong for being able to wrestle and having a strong wrestling top game.
Yeah, I think I count 5 generations at
Yeah.
welterweight, and I
Let me
would
see.
say all but one is I would say the meta for it is being an extremely powerful wrestler.
Yeah. You have 5 generations?
I do.
Okay. I have 5, 6 ish. Actually,
Okay.
you're in my first generation, or your generation. Your first generation is 1 or 2.
Yeah. So my first generation is just the I would call it the Militich fighting systems
Yep.
generation. Now Carlos Newton won the belt off Pat Militich, but it's again the inauguration of this belt was in 1999, basically in the UFC, and like welterweight doesn't really exist in Pride too much,
Right.
uh, because it's in this weird like 165 lightweight era. And that's where like Takanori Gomi, Nate Diaz or Nick Diaz, BJ Penn fought. So I would say, right, you have this like Pat Miletich, Carlos Newton, which is very Iowa wrestling, top heavy ground and pound.
Yep.
That then passes on to Matt Hughes overall, and it's
Do you
kind
say
of the
that's a
Hughes.
second generation or a continuation of the Miltich wrestling?
I would say it's the second generation because it's a
Okay.
whole new crop of new fighters like Sean Shirk, Frank Trigg, the big opponents that Matt Hughes defeated in his time.
Yep.
Didn't start MMA until Matt Hughes did. They didn't start it back in like 97, 99, 98. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then from the Matt Hughes generation, which I have to like be honest, like so he lost to BJ Penn. We don't count that, or I mean, we do count it, but like we don't count that as part of the generation, right? It is still the
No.
Matt
No.
Hughes. It's the powerful, top game wrestler
Yep.
era. The Matt Hughes era was like pretty astounding to watch. I remember this is like
Yeah.
right when I came in to watch it. I remember watching the War of '04 when Matt Hughes fought George St. Pierre the first time. I remember watching Matt Hughes fight Hoist Gracie when they brought Hoist Gracie back in like
Yeah.
'60. Matt Hughes was, I mean, both of his fights with Frank Trigg, just an absolute juggernaut.
Yeah.
Then we have George St. Pierre.
Yep.
Uh, I mean, the St. Pierre era, again, another like like nearly 10-year record, a 7-year record. That's a whole nother generation that was phenomenal. And again, his wrestling and being a dominant wrestler was so important at this time. And then we enter that weird blip. Remember that weird blip between 2014 to 2016? It's only a 2-year blip.
Yeah.
I would just call it the violence weight era. We're talking
Yeah.
Robbie Lawler, Carlos Condit. We're talking Robbie Lawler, Johnny Hendricks. We're talking Robbie Lawler, Rory McDonald. Just strikers actually dominating this division.
Yeah. Yeah.
Only for 2 years, but just beating the absolute piss out of each other.
Yeah.
And then everything reestablishes itself when Tyron Woodley takes over. But I count Woodley and Usman and Edwards and Masvidal and Covington all in the same era.
Okay.
So
Okay. That's where you have yours.
it's like this resettling back to the Usman wrestling era. And now I think just now we're just on the precipice of a new era with Bilal Muhammad. But Bilal's old. Bilal's 36, 37. So he's still kind of that old era.
Yeah.
Like, we've got Ian Gary, we've got Shavkat Rakhmonov, we've got Jack Della Maddalena, we've got Sean Brady. We're just on the cusp of a new era that hasn't quite taken over yet.
Right.
So, which is the best era for welterweight?
It's the GSP one. Come on now.
Well, hold on a minute. Wait. We had a 2 or 3 year period where Robbie Lawler and every opponent he fought, it was absolute fucking mayhem. And Robbie Lawler just got inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame.
Yeah, yeah.
Was that 2-year period secretly the best, Colin? Was it the best?
I think it was I think it was definitely, for the exact reasons you just showed. It was a very entertaining era, and I don't want to take anything away from Robbie Lawler because the fights that he had were exactly like he said, bloody guts, just absolute like extreme violence and supremely entertaining. But I think a lot of that was because we hadn't seen that in this division. It was so new. Pretty much the entire existence of welterweight has been about dominant, wrestlers who could yes, they also were insanely violent. I mean, some of the things that George St. Pierre and Matthews did was like they absolutely brutalized some of their opponents, like type of affair, and it was something entirely unique to this division. And the only blip in this division's history where all the dynamic action fighters that are characteristic of some other divisions like came to fruition here. So again, very entertaining, but I do want to point out something that you've pointed out many times of what George St. Pierre did, because some of the things that he did and some of the things that he was able to accomplish while champion against some of the most diverse challengers, like that's pretty remarkable. Like he outstruck a striker, he out wrestled a wrestler, he out grappled the grapplers, so like one from a champion standpoint of his ability to do that, but make it look easy doing so, and in any other aspect, those other guys would have become champion if George wasn't there. Yeah. So again, kind of nullifying an entire generation, but doing it in a way that was like so diverse. So like to me that is why I would say any of Robbie Lawler's fights during this time were like instant classics though.
Yeah, and man, yeah, I just look that, because I agree. George St. Pierre is my favorite fighter. Robbie Lawler is my second favorite fighter. It's like a very weird toss up because it's just like Robbie Lawler had his cheek or his lip split from like his fucking tooth up to his eyeball in that one fight against Roy McDonald, and I'm just like, dude, he just fucking spit blood all over the cage and then finished Roy McDonald. Like, dude, it was, for those 2 years, it was all action, blood.
Yeah. No, it's
yeah, no, it makes sense. And like George St. Pierre, okay, here's my question. Okay, fuck it, fine. It's George St. Pierre. The George St. Pierre is the best at welterweight. I hear it. Colin, if George St. Pierre was in his prime right now, would he be the welterweight champion?
Hell yes.
Hell yes. That's exactly right.
That's not even a consideration there. Come on.
What other division of all UFC divisions where if a former champion was in their prime, they would be the current champion.
John Jones.
John Jones, definitely. Cain Velasquez?
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that.
Okay, great. Cain, John. What about a middleweight?
Ugh.
What about Izzy in his prime?
I
Izzy the smash of Robert Whittaker.
I feel like Izzy. I picked Izzy now to beat DDP.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Alright,
yes,
alright.
yes,
So yeah,
100%.
Izzy probably. And then yeah, like the crazy thing is George St. Pierre won the title in 2008, and he might be champion in 2025 with his current with his skill set.
Forehead.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Again, we talked about this before. Like during his training, it was like, oh, like that's so weird and like so out there for him to do. But now it's like standard practice for many people. Like
Yeah.
some of the even just some things like his weightlifting or his recovery efforts, like things like that. You know, like
What
he was just
about-
ahead of his time.
Yeah. What do you think about Jose Aldo? You think he'd be able to beat Ilia Topuria if he was in a prime?
Ooh, that's
a pretty good fight.
God, like
yeah, it's pretty good.
Oh my God, like 2010, 2011, Jose Aldo.
Yeah.
Oh, Jose Aldo who kneed Chad Mendes and then flew into the crowd.
Yeah.
Oh
man.
my God. Oh my God.
Against Topuria, that'd be fucking good. What
Yeah.
about
Dom Cruz?
peak Dom Cruz? I don't think he'd beat Marab. Marab has just got a gas tank for crazy. But here's the question: peak Demetrius Johnson versus the Cannibal.
Oh hell yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is kind of crazy because like you don't see that much. I mean, I guess you see it in heavyweight boxing quite a bit. I mean, you see it in boxing, combat sports quite a bit. Like Muhammad Ali would style on a lot of heavyweights at this moment. I don't think he'd beat Usyk, but like Muhammad Ali, I mean, even being, what is it, nearly 80 years later, at his peak, his skill level is still strong enough to beat a lot of heavyweights. But it is kind of crazy because there was this one period of time where Jose Aldo, George St. Pierre, Anderson Silva, John Jones, Cain Velasquez all were reigning, defending title holders. And they all, in our estimation, could beat, if they were in their prime now, the current title holders. Like, that's crazy. Okay, fine. Fuck it. George St. Pierre era is the best, though. I still hold out a lot of love in my heart for the Robbie Lawler violence era. What is the worst time for welterweight? And there's only two options, and that's pre-Matt Hughes and that's right now.
Yeah.
Actually, hold on. Let me take that back. The Tyron Woodley, Colvin Covington, Kamaru Usman era is not actually very good.
No, it's not either. The storylines make it fun, but that's about it.
But they don't have the talent of Shavkat or Jack Dale Maddalena or Ian Gary or Sean Brady. Like they just don't.
Yeah, fuck it. I'll put it there. Like the thing is, I didn't watch a lot of Pat Militich's early fights either. I only saw like highlights and reviews of them. But even with that, I still think I hate to say it. Yeah. The Tyron Woodley, Colby Covington, and Kamaru Usman. Yeah.
I think you're right. I think it is. It was. There was at least those storylines. They were sexing it up. But it was compared to the violence era that came before, and then the absolutes. Like, I can't even talk about how decadent the skill of the George St. Pierre era was. Josh Koscheck, John Fitch, B.J. Penn, Dan Hardy. Who else did he fight in that time? Carlos Condit, Nick Diaz. Like, there were storylines there as well. And it really was just like Kamaru Usman with a jab, Colby Covington with volume. Yeah, it just wasn't as good of an era.
No.
You had Stephen Wonderboy Thompson in there. You had, Darren Till doesn't get, who fucking cares? But like, you had some stuff, but no, it just wasn't the same. I agree.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the real one.
Okay.
The best division the UFC's ever had. In your estimation, Colin, because I think we'll differ on this. How many eras were there at lightweight?
God. All right, let's see. Okay, are we counting The era, are we counting when they got rid
Yeah.
of lightweight?
So
Like,
we'll count that kind of like we'll count that like Jens Pulver. We'll count it like pre-mainstream UFC,
okay.
right? When like it was Jens Pulver and then they cut it for what 5 years before they brought it back.
Yeah. Okay.
Pre-mainstream era will count as one.
Okay.
You tell me how many are after that.
Okay. Uh, let me count. One. Maybe 4 or 5?
Now, here's my thing. I only count 3.
Oh, okay, okay. So my
Because
first era, okay,
yeah,
is
lay it on me.
the BJ Penn Frankie Edgar era.
Oh, you count the Frankie Edgar era with the BJ Penn era.
Mm-hmm.
See, I count the Sean Shirk, the time when Sean Shirk held the belt, and BJ Penn separate from the Frankie Edgar era. Because I
Okay.
fold Frankie Edgar, Benson Henderson, and Anthony Pettis all as like one collective era.
Oh, see, I had the Benson Henderson, Anthony Pettis, and Rafael dos Anjos all one era.
Here's the thing: Rafael dos Anjos and Eddie Alvarez and Conor McGregor all started their MMA careers around the same time. And if you count all of them in the same era, Khabib
Yeah.
started around the same time, Charles Oliveira started around the same time, and so did Islam Makhachev.
So you're saying pretty much 2015 onwards is all
I'm telling you,
one
Rafael dos
timeline.
Anjos, Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, Dan Hooker, Conor McGregor, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Charles Oliveira, Islam Makhachev, all these action fighters, all of our favorite lightweights, all of them motherfuckers started their MMA career around the same time, and that is the current lightweight division.
Wow.
Yeah,
Damn.
yeah,
Damn. Yeah.
because all of them started within 1 to 2 years of each other.
Wow.
I know,
That's shocking.
isn't that nuts, dude?
That's wild. Yeah. They
Yeah.
all had like their first professional fights all around the same time.
Yeah, and like even Khabib
Jesus.
had it a little bit before, so you could even like put him into the Anthony Pettis because he was supposed to get a title shot before Rafael dos Anjos. Habib did. So like
Really?
he's actually within because he beat Rafael dos Anjos, then he broke his rib in a title after the title eliminator, and so then that's why Rafael dos Anjos got the fight against Anthony Pettis.
Oh.
So like you could even say that like Habib and Eddie and Connor and Dustin and Justin Gaethje all are more in the Anthony Pettis, Benson Henderson like era. All
Wow.
of that is to say, dude, lightweight between 2010 and 2025 has been the fucking division.
Yeah.
Overall. So yeah, I would count it as like the BJ because I think Frankie Edgar, Benson Henderson, Anthony Pettis, Gilbert Melendez, who isn't like captured as like a title challenger, but he won in Strikeforce a bunch, and even Eddie Alvarez to a lesser extent, kind of were all one like kind of generation, like the post BJ generation, overall. But
Mhm.
like Rafael dos Anjos fought Khabib Nurmagomedov before he got a title shot. Conor McGregor had his first MMA fight like around the time that Rafael dos Anjos just entered the UFC. Charles Oliveira had been in the UFC before Rafael dos Anjos, who became a champion. Dustin Poirier had his first WEC fight when Benson Henderson was still fighting in the WEC, right? Like everyone you know as an established name in the lightweight division has basically been fighting since 2013, 2014.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's incredible they've had such
yes,
long careers.
yes. And with that, I say the best lightweight, the best lightweight, the golden era. We're just on the tail end of it.
Yeah.
And like essentially basically 2014 until now, Conor McGregor's entire run at lightweight, Eddie Alvarez, Khabib, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, Islam Makhachev, Charles Oliveira, all of these guys. It's been happening, and that's. I mean, we talk about these aging action fighters, and then we have all these other fighters. Rafael dos Anjos, we don't even talk about it anymore, but he was fighting at the exact same time. He's part of
Yeah.
that same generation. Tony Ferguson, we don't talk about much anymore. But Tony Ferguson belongs in this category, who put on amazing fights and won an interim title. Kevin Lee
Yeah.
put on amazing fights. Edson Barbosa, who is still fighting, was a stalwart in the lightweight division at this time. All of these guys are all of the same generation. That
Yeah.
sort of 2015 onward generation. And I say that's the best. I mean, that might be the best crop of fighters any division has ever had at any one time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. So Colin, with that in mind, because here's the thing, we're in the very downward spiral of the lightweight division.
Yeah.
Who is this next generation and where do they rank? Because we need to say what the lowest is, and I'm like, simply because I don't know who the next generation is, I have to place them as the lowest lightweight's ever been.
I mean, yeah, but here's the thing. You know, we have it's like you said in the what pretty much baby Dan Hooker you could say is the next generation, but like a lot of these guys are,
Oh man, Dan Hooker is the same age as Dustin Poirier.
no fucking way.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess
Michael
then,
Chandler's 2 years older.
yeah, I guess the Mateusz Gamrots and Hinata Moikados and Patty Pimblets, but there is someone coming in who might be able to just usurp this entire division and continue the legacy of dynamic action fighters in Ilya Topuria.
That's true, but and I listen, man. I get a full chub for Ilya Topuria. But here's the thing. He's but one man.
Yeah, yeah.
I just said lightweight had Dan Hooker, Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, Conor McGregor, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Islam Makhachev, Eddie Alvarez, Rafael dos Anjos, Kevin Lee, Tony Ferguson,
I know.
all at the same time.
Yeah.
We could have Ilya
Yeah.
Topuria and Mateusz Gamrot, Ilya Topuria and Arman Tsarukyan. I'm not even half chub at that, my man. You know what I mean? Like it's not
I know.
the division.
It's not, but we have to see. Because I just said, Anderson Silva staunched the growth of an entire generation.
Mm-hmm.
We've been eating good for 15 years, in the lightweight division. How many dozens or hundreds of prospects that these guys just totally demolish because we were so blessed to have this golden age of fighters,
I mean, but it's crazy because it's like Islam and Khabib, Charles Oliveira, Tony Ferguson, Kevin Lee, all of them were starching people, and yet we still got Eddie Alvarez's, Rafael dos Anjos's, Conor McGregor's, Dan Hooker's. Like they all took lumps out of each other, and it made the division. Unlike boxing in the 80s and 90s with Roberto Duran and Marvin Hagler, right? The four kings division. We had like 12 kings in this fucking division.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it was better for it. Truly astonishing.
Oh yeah.
How good the lightweight division between 2010 and now is. And I think that kind of golden era, that real good time is coming to an end.
Yeah.
But I will say, looking at all these divisions, it is the only division that has never had really a bad era. Overall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything's been entertaining from it, so.
Yeah. God damn. But yeah, I was like looking back over this one. I was like, oh man, they all started around the same time. And then you look at the number of people, and like people that aren't even in the title conversation. Edson Barbosa,
Right.
Donald Cerrone is in there, right? Donald Cerrone is an action fighter. Jim Miller as an action fighter.
Yeah.
Like lightweights that we are celebrating today were part of this generation. And it's just like there aren't that many there aren't people that you can say like, oh, you weren't even a title challenger, and we still remember you quite fondly. And like lightweight had that, and then all
Mhm.
these other title challengers and all these other title holders. Like that's fucking crazy. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's nuts. Um, Featherweight is the division of kings, but goddamn, if lightweight isn't just a plethora of riches for us.
Yeah.
And it's a bummer to see that there's not really anyone at the moment coming to replace this old guard. Now, granted, this old guard is, I mean, nearly irreplaceable, but it can't just be Armin Tsuyukin and Mateusz Gamrot and Paddy Pimblett. That's
Right.
not gonna fucking cut it, right? That's how you find yourself like heavyweight and light heavyweight. You know what I mean? So anyway, all right. Well, this has been the best of times and the worst of times. We've now covered every division that actually matters. Look, did we like talk about super heavyweight with Bob Sapp? No, who gives a shit? Do we talk about atomweight? No, we're filthy casuals. We don't know about atomweight. We're not following random Japanese regional organizations. Okay, we talk about the divisions that matter: welterweight, lightweight. We talk about Robbie Lawler. We talk about Conor McGregor. That's what we're about. That's what our deal is. I'm One Fight Fan Stewart.
I'm the other Colin.
All right, join us on Friday. We're going to talk about UFC on London, actually a pretty good card, and we're going to make picks right now. Spoiler alert: we're going to record it in about 5 minutes after this.
Yeah.
I'm going to go take a shit, and then we're going to go. All right, everybody, peace.
Bye.